Hey everyone, the Flying Scotsman here. Welcome to this video. In the last video you saw me unboxing the parts to my new server. Now I've built it and well, let's just kind of show you a bit of it. I know that some of you are not going to like the blue LED fan I've put on top of it, but that's okay because it's not your server. It's mine. Anyway, so what I've done in here is I have installed the hard drives into the hot swap drive base. Well, the SSDs rather. That was quite an arduous task actually. In fact, I have, I did originally film it last night. Not sure, if anyone would want to see that. But I have installed the Supermicro motherboard. It's a Supermicro X8 SILF motherboard. I've also installed the Xeon X3470 CPU, which is clocked at 2.93 GHz. Is a 4-core hyper-threaded, so it has 8 logical cores. Nice. I've also installed the Dell H310, and with some help from Sansui 350A, was able to get it flashed. So now it thinks it's an LSI SAS 2008 card, but it'll still work, and just it'll work a lot better than using it than it would had I just been using it as a non-bootable Dell H310 card. As part of the flash, the card no longer has a BIOS, so it won't boot. You can't boot from it, but that's not what I want. I'm booting the boot drives of the 2 SSDs I've installed, and they're plugged into the motherboard. The other hard drives will soon be plugged in to the H310. So, memory is 16 gigs of DDR3 PC 12800 ECC RAM, dual channel. And what else have I got to tell you? Oh yes, the motherboard requires an 8-pin power adapter, so I've had to swap out my faithful Seasonic power supply, the 350 watt one, in favour of the Gigabyte power supply, which originally was installed in the Beast. That's 450 watts, max 550, but it has the 8-pin power connector. It's 2 4-pin connectors split down the middle, so that works absolutely fine. It also has a graphics card connector, should I have ever wanted one. So, with that all done, I guess it's time to move on to the actual software side and setting up the server side of things. So, because I still had the KVM cable set up from when I had the Compact Presario 4620, I'm able to use these cables and the Ethernet cable to actually get the, to actually have a head on the server and a keyboard and mouse. So that's good. I have a Debian 9.3 install set up on this USB key, but you might notice that I'm actually booted up at the moment into my usual Windows 95 boot disk. That is actually a thing that I've done. The board, believe it or not, has a floppy controller on it. So, and the case has a floppy drive in it. So why not connect the two? I mean, it's not like I'm going to be doing anything with the floppy drive, but you know what? I've connected it. So on that rare occasion I might need a floppy disk, it's there. And besides, it's kind of funny, like the most powerful system I have essentially has a floppy drive in it. I quite like that. Anyway, I'm just going to plug this USB pen drive into one of the USB ports, and then we will reboot the server and we'll boot into Debian. And I'll go through the installation steps with you. What we're going to do actually as well is we are going to create the RAID volume. So Control Alt Delete out of that, and I'm going to press F11 to boot. There we go. And as you can see, I've got the first floppy drive, both SSDs, and the Kingston Data Traveler USB drive. Excellent. So that's up and running. So what I want to do is I want to go to Advanced Options, and then I want to go down to Graphical Expert Install. I didn't realise I was a graphical expert. In fact, I'm not, so I probably shouldn't be using that. Look how smoothly the text scrolls up there. Excellent, we are in. So, now, it's quite funny actually, because the first Linux I ever installed, I was using this monitor with the 2001 custom build. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we'll choose the language, English, and I've gone into the graphical install because it's easier to see for me, so that is why I'm here. Yep, I'm just going to type EN. No, it's not. Okay, so I want ENGB. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select both of these, click continue, and UTF-8, then access to a blank, nope, configure the keyboard, British English, detect and mount CD-ROM. Now I will say a word about this. Even though it's a USB key, the installer will kind of like say it's still on a CD-ROM. Right, good, CD-ROM detected. Load components from the CD. Okay, so I want to choose a mirror to install from. Don't want a driver injection disks. I'm probably loading a whole load of other things that I don't need. Don't need the free mem for low free memory for low mem install. NBR-UDEB boot, master boot record for IBM PC compatible computers. Yes, I want that. I'll take multipath. I'll take the NBD modules. NFS common, why not? Right, we don't need the SSH client. I'm not going to do it over SSH because I tried that last night and ended up with a garbled screen and ended up installing a GPT version of Debian, which I don't want. I want partib udeb, yep. I'll take all of this, Squash FX, FS, UDF modules, but I don't need the Vertio modules because I'm not actually installing Vertio. I'm not actually installing on Proxmox. My plan, I think, is to have an OpenMediaVault virtual server, so I probably will need the Vertio stuff for that. Excellent. Detect network hardware. Should be fine. It's Intel. Good. Configure start a PPOE connection. Nope. Didn't need that. Detecting link. Good. So I want the first one, because that's I plugged it into the first port. Auto configure networking. Nope. What I'll do is I'll put it on 192.168.0.10. 255.255.255.0. The gateway is 192.168.0.1, and so is the DNS server. That's where my router is. Is this information correct? Yes, it is. And then we're going to detect the link. Configure the network. Okay, so the host name for this, I've decided to go from MILF. I've decided to go in a different direction, and we're going to call this one Jade. But we're still going to have the fanny.local domain name, because I can't think of anything better right now. Choose a mirror for the Debian archive. HTTP, United Kingdom. Bytemark has always been good for me. If you're in the UK, then don't use it, because I'm using it. Kidding on. Bytemark has been pretty good for me, especially now that I've got a fibre broadband connection. So, yep. What is this? What is this? Just check that everything's plugged in. I think Bytemarker's really, really good. Ah, right. I have found a problem. Want to know what that problem is? Here's the network cable that should be in the back of the server. Right. Now, Bytemark is a fantastic mirror, but it usually requires that you connect to the internet to get to it. I know it's one of those silly kind of rules and regs, but hey ho, they're a good mirror, so I will comply. Excellent. Right. Okay, let's go back. Let's choose the mirror again. Mirror.bytemark.uk. Excellent. That's worked. Set up users and passwords. Jeez oh. Enable shadow passwords. Yes. Allow login as root. Nope. I will obviously set root up properly once I'm in, but I do want sudo powers on my own name. So what's the name of the new user? J Wakefield. Name for the account, J. I'm just going to type in my password. There we go. Now to configure the clock, I'll use NTP, Europe, London, detect the disks, and we're going to partition the disks. Okay, so I've just gotten some advice from Sansui 350A. Now, turns out, what I can do is I could create a new disk label. And what I've done as well is I've plugged in the 42 terabyte drives, which have now been wiped and cleared of their RAID as well. So now all we've got left to do is make a new label on the SSDs. So I'm going to select the top one here. Okay, create a new empty partition table on this device. Yes. And then I'm going to go to MS-DOS. There's all different kinds of partition tables I can use, but I want the MS-DOS one because it's an MBR system. And there you go. Same with this one, SCSI 40 gig Intel SSD. Create a new empty partition table on this device. Yes, MS-DOS. So now we have some free space to play with, and it's an MS-DOS partition. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some partitions. We're going to create the swap partitions first, and then with the rest of the space we're going to create the data partitions. Now, like I said before, the swap partitions go at the end of the drive, so I'm going to create a new partition. And it's only going to be 4 gigs. James. So, make it a primary partition at the end of the drive. Excellent. And then what I want to do is, I don't want to use it as an ext4 partition, I want to use it as a physical volume for RAID. Bootable flag. Don't want to boot from a swap partition. So right, okay, I'm doing that. So finish partition, then we've got our 4 gig partition at the end of the drive. And it's the same basic ceremony for both. So a 4 gig primary partition living at the end of the drive. Physical volume for RAID. And I'm done setting up the partition. That's good. So next thing we'd do is create the boot partition. So select the 36 gigs of space, create a new partition, continue. Yep, use all the space. Primary again. Physical volume for RAID. This time put the bootable flag on. And that's just a wee precaution there. Most of the time you wouldn't need that, but you have that one computer, that one system that will not work without it. So it's going on because it's bootable. New partition, again, 36 gig primary partition, living at the beginning of the drive, which is physical volume for RAID and bootable. Excellent. And then done setting up the partition, and there we go. So now we need to actually set up the new RAID arrays. So first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to configure software RAID. Write the storage to these devices. Yeah, that. Okay, so I'm going to create an MD device. I want to create RAID 1, so that means the drives will be mirrored. Number of devices in this RAID array, 2. Number of spare devices, 0. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to let's create the swap partitions. Yep, the 4 gig partitions. So away that goes and clatters something. And then what I want to do next is create another RAID device, another RAID 1. 2 now. If you don't want to see the results, look away now. Okay, there we go. So I can finish that. So now I have my 2 RAID devices. So I'm going to go into that, I believe, and then I'm going to use this one as a swap area, and then done setting up this partition, and then I'm going to make this one, going to use it as ext4 journaling file system. I want to use the root file system as the mount point. Defaults, James seem to be okay. Defaults Label non-reserved blocks 5% typical usage standard. Done setting up the partition. So we have our RAID array. So next we're going to set up the RAID 10 array on these drives. Now RAID 10 differs from RAID 1, and RAID 1 will take one device, and everything that's written to that device, it'll be written to the next device. So, you know, I've got the two SSDs in a RAID 1 array, so I'll write to one and it'll get mirrored on the other. Now what RAID 10 does is I can take 4 devices, 2 of them will, I'll have, it's striped and mirrored. So you'll have 2 drives that are mirrored, and then another 2 drives that are mirrored. Basically you get a net result is you get because the 4 2 terabyte hard disks in this system, I'll get 4 terabytes of usable space. So 2 terabyte, first 2 terabytes, second 2 terabytes, and then mirror of the first 2 terabytes and mirror of the second 2 terabytes. So I've decided to actually film this one. It's a bit different, but still the same idea. I want one big partition, and I'm going to create RAID 10. So create a new partition, basically create the entire disk as a partition, 2 terabyte primary partition, used as a physical volume for RAID. Don't need that bootable. And I'm done setting up the partition. That's good. And so I'll do it for the other 3 drives. Okay, so we've got 4 2 terabyte partitions. So we're going to go back to configuring software RAID. Right, the following partitions are going to be formatted. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now I want to create an MD device. This time I'm going to select RAID 10. So number of active disks for this RAID 10 array, I want 4, with no spares. So, right, now then. So I want one of these, one of these, one of those, and one of those. So SDD, SDE, SDF, and SDG. Relative RAID 10 array. So we're going to go for O2 here, like the mobile phone network. Way. And then continue. And then that's going to go off and create the RAID array. Good. Finish. Scanning disks. Please wait. Starting up the partitioner. Detecting file system. Good. So we have a 4 gig swap, one ext 4 device of a RAID 1 array, and then we've got a 4 terabyte array. So what we're going to do is click on that, and then we're going to use it as an ext4 journalizing file system. I think I'm going to enter it manually. So I've created the XFS partition, the 4 terabyte partition. with relative time, which allows the file system to be lazy about updating access times. Hopefully make things a bit, you know, not tying up the system as much. I'm guessing that's what that does. Offset to, and yeah, and it's put in mnt/storage. So what we're going to do is finish partitioning and write changes to disk. If you continue, the changes below will be made. Partition tables, RAID 1 to RAID 10 device 2. Yeah. RAID 10 device 2 is XFS. Good. So I don't know how long that's going to take. Excellent. Okay, now we're ready to install the base system. Finally. Okay, so that it's actually going really quite quickly. Guess it's what happens when you're on an SSD. Okay, so I want to use Linux image AMD64. I don't want to use the image with the kernel version number. Just want to use this one. Excellent. Continue. Generic install. Yep. That's a good thing, it's that general option. I mean, last night I just decided to put the server together with the MILFs disks in as they were, and, well, it booted right on up. All I had to do was change netc etc/network/interfaces from ETH0 to ETH1, and then away it went. Quite literally. It was absolutely fine. So, configure the package manager. Use the network mirror, yep. And I'm going to continue to use bytemark. Use non-free software? Well, do I want to use my computer? Yeah, I think so. Continue. And then enable source repositories in apt. And there we go. Now we are configuring the package manager, and what we're going to do next is, security updates from security.debian.org, release updates, and backported software. That's something that I would like very much. So now to select and install the software. So in a couple of minutes or so, it's going to ask me what I want to install. Do I wish to participate in the package survey? No. Running task cell. Okay. Don't need a desktop environment, but I will take the SSH server. Don't need the print server either, so I'll just take the SSH server and the standard system utilities, and away we go. So this is going to install. It'll take a few minutes. 12 well, It's just, you know, it'll just count down how long the each individual process takes. But bloody hell, this is going awful quick. I've never seen this go so quick, seriously. I mean, seriously, just wow. I mean, it just kind of shows. I mean, I think part of it, obviously, yeah, is to do with the fibre broadband, but I think the lion's share of this turn of speed has got to be everything to do with those SSDs. Wow. Just, bleh, we're there. Now, I'm going to install Grub, but Sansui 350A wants to help me install a few extra bits. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go back and sort that out. So I just flipped over to a terminal and installed a couple of things: screen-slave-2.6 and bridge-utils, and that will allow me to do failover to the other NIC port. So first thing to do, next thing, I'm just going to go Control Alt F5, and that will take me back to the graphical installer. Install Grub bootloader on a hard disk. Okay, so I want to install the Grub partition on the Intel SSD. Okay, managed to get this installed. So now we're going to go to finish the installation, and that's gonna dot the I's and cross the T's. Is the system clock set to UTC? No, it isn't. Okay, installation is complete. It is time to boot into your new system. Make sure to remove the installation media so that you boot into the new system rather than restarting the installation. Excellent. Ugh. So now we are booting into the new Debian system. Excellent. So just to update you all on what's going on, I've just installed Proxmox, and I've got a couple more things to do. My network has been set up with a bond bridge. VMBR0 has also been set up, so I should be able to get on the network using Proxmox. And yeah, we're getting there, slowly but surely. We are getting there. If I go to here, we find that the RAID arrays are being created. The boot array and the swap array are already done. The data storage array, I reckon that's going to take some time. So with that said, I think I'm going to button up the case and just let it sit there and rot. Sitrep on the server. Proxmox is now installed, and I have a VM spun up in Proxmox. This has got a 1.5 terabyte virtual hard disk and is going to be my storage server. I'm installing Debian 9 on it, and we'll be planning to install OpenMediaVault to manage files and what have you. Also, at some point, probably might want to install a PC operating system so that, you know, I can do stuff on my server when my desktop's switched off. Well, guys, it's been a few days since I last updated you on this server build. But it's I'm happy to say that it's all up and running now. How I've set it up with the help of Sansui 350A is I have the two SSD boot drives set in a RAID 1, so basically they're mirrored. The 4 hard drives are striped and mirrored in a RAID 10 array. The server runs Debian Stretch. On top of that we have Proxmox virtualization environment. Same as on the other server. And on top of Proxmox we have another server running. And yeah, this one is running something called OpenMediaVault, which you can see. This is absolutely fantastic, because I was able to apportion password protected shares as well as non-password protected shares. How does this work? Well, you have to use a password to get access to the password protected shares, which obviously is a thing. Non-password protected shares, however, work in Windows 9X. So let me show you this. Windows 98 only supports the LAN manager protocol rather than the SMB. I think it supports SMB1, but it doesn't support 2 or 3. And SMB 2 and 3 are what I have installed. So if I go to Network Neighborhood, you see my server, you can see that I can get into Media and into Installs, but not into Documents. Even if I typed in my password, it wouldn't work. But that's perfectly fine. This is basically what I wanted out of the server. So I'm really quite happy with that. Of course, on top of that, we have Plex and Transmission installed, if I need to use it. So yeah, pretty much everything is go. So, ladies and gentlemen, my new server has now been fully set up. I'd like to thank Sansui 350A once again for the amazing generosity in parts and what have you. And I would also like to thank you all for watching. Please do feel free to join me for my next video. Cheery bye.